Hey y'all, welcome in and welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to be telling you guys how we conceive naturally and with me being plus size. Basically, I filmed this video as a pregnancy recap, but I'm going to separate the videos and do a pregnancy recap as another video and then do this as our conception story. So this is my experience. I am solely doing this. I was literally filming the other video and then I heard that I need to make this into a conception story video. And as an encouragement to those who are waiting for their baby, I just want to be sensitive to that. But also I think that my story will be impactful to someone. And I think that I need to go ahead and tell this part of the story as a video on its own. But anyway, how we got to that point in our relationship was that at that point when we decided in December of 2021, we were married for 2 years exactly that month. And we thought about it for a good majority of that year. But what was happening in our marriage was that at one point, one of us would be ready and then the other one wouldn't be ready. And then at the next point, the other one would be ready and then the other one wasn't ready. So it would just flip-flop like that for a very long time. So how we got to a point of conception was that in December of 2021, we came to each other and my husband was like, you think blah, 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 some baby, something baby ready, baby, something ready. And I was like, yes, baby ready, something ready, baby. And that was like the first time in our history of dating we had ever been on the same page. Obviously, we were fornicators, okay? If you want to know the definition of fornicators, subscribe to the channel. Check out the God content because we could talk about it. But we were fornicators, okay? So it wasn't like the baby conversation came up on purpose before. It came up by accident before. So in this situation, we have been celibate for some time, then we got married, and then 2 years later we start talking about babies. And in this situation, this was the first time we had been on the same page. When we got married, we obviously had that baby conversation because my husband was under the impression that when you get married, like, no birth control, just do what you do, and if it happened, it happened. And I'm like, how is that? Okay. No, that's not the situation. And I grew up in a household where all it took was one time, and you do it one time and then you get pregnant. And I actually have people that are very close to me that happened to, and I was fully under the impression that I'm talking about when you have sex and you like complete the sex, this is not for kids, but you know, there's no withdrawal, there's no nothing, there's just incompletion, okay? So anyway, when that happens, if you have any contact with that fluid, you're gonna get pregnant. So I was like, okay, I was always under that pressure, so I never had that, happen to me, okay? But anyway, at the end of the day, let me get back to it. So in December, we both talked about it. We both were on the same page. And then we decided to take out our parameters that was blocking the pregnancy. Honestly, it was God blocking the pregnancy. Because if you want to be pregnant, if he wants you to be pregnant, you're going to be pregnant, okay? You just got to get over that. That's basically the moral of the story. But anyway, we took out our parameters to not get pregnant. And I was not doing anything hormonal. Let's just be clear. I was not doing anything hormonal to stop pregnancy. So that obviously makes a difference sometime as well. So in December, it was like December 28th, we stopped, and then we ended up trying to conceive, and then nothing happened. And then January rolled around, nothing happened. And then February rolled around, nothing happened. At that point, it was time for me to go to my regular doctor for my physical exam that year. I had been diagnosed with hypothyroidism before in the past, like 2 or 3 years prior to that date. And what ended up happening was that there was a mix-up with the medication, and I never ended up taking the medication. But then when I went back to the doctor, she checked my numbers and they were great. So then she was like, you're good, like it's fine. Like, and we all knew who did that, who sustained me through that. So I was just like, okay, well, God doesn't want me to have hypothyroidism. I don't have it. So then I ended up getting my numbers rechecked the next year and nothing was going on. But then recently, in the year that we were trying to conceive, I had been really working hard at the gym, like really, really working hard. And I know it's partly diet, but when I say I was working hard at the gym, I was working hard at the gym. I was going to the gym 5 to 6 times a week. And when I say there was barely no change as far as physique or weight, I was like, okay, something is up. I'm working way too hard and nothing is happening. And it wasn't like I was gaining, but I also wasn't losing. And then I think at some point I was gaining, and then I was like, wait, this doesn't make sense. So I went back to my doctor for my annual check. She checked my numbers and I asked her to anyway. Found out I still had hypothyroidism. With hypothyroidism, you go on a medication. Mine is levothyroxine. But anyway, I got on that medication, and moral to the story, in that situation, the levothyroxine is important for your baby's mental development. If you have hypothyroidism and you aren't on medication and you do conceive, there's a chance that your baby can have developmental issues, mental issues when they are born. So in March, I got diagnosed with that, went on levothyroxine, and then I was like, okay, we can keep trying. By the end of March, when I didn't conceive, I was, kind of exhausted a bit. Like, I was mentally drained. I was like, every month I go and I wait for my period and I hope it doesn't come, even down to the night before or the day that it's supposed to be here. And I'm hoping with all my might that it doesn't come, and it came every month. So then, and this was 4 months. So then I was like, okay, I need a break. I cannot mentally, when my period came in March, I could not mentally take another month of checking for my period to come and it not being here. Let's go back a bit to when we were trying to conceive. We decided to try to conceive, and then our church was having like a New Year's service, or didn't have a New Year's service. So then we went to one of our pastors' house to watch a sermon on New Year's or near New Year's. And we ended up watching that sermon and coming home and debriefing the sermon. Normally we debrief the sermon and we both get things that are similar, but then sometimes it's just a little different. When we debriefed that sermon, we both got that we were not going about this correctly. We did not come to God and go before God before trying. We just decided within ourselves and decided to start trying for a baby. And you might hear upstairs, I might have to go get her just because she might not want to take a nap with my husband right now. But anyway, we both got that from the sermon. So then we decided that we needed to pray. We needed to pray. We need to ask for forgiveness, and we needed to pray, because one thing about a blessing from God, even in the midst of it being good, sometimes you can think because something is good, God wants it for you now. Just because a baby is good and he told us to be fruitful and multiply does not mean that it was time for me to have a baby. And we had evidence of that because we had not conceived for 4 months. So when we decided that we were actually going to pray about it, ask for forgiveness and pray about it, we wanted an answer. We wanted an answer from God. And I wanted to tell you that when you want an answer from God, pray to him, have a relationship with him, and he will answer your prayer. Whether it's through his word, sometimes he doesn't have to tell you what's in his word. If it's in his word, he ain't gonna be like, Tisha, do this. No, read my word and you'll hear from me from it. He'll send it through wise counsel, which is another person that's further ahead of you in the faith, that has a real relationship with God in the fruit thereof. And you can get disciple from them and ask them about it, and they can receive words from God on it. Or it can be one second. We got a visitor. But anyway, what I was talking about was that it's surprising that I can remember, because my brain is a real thing. Stay tuned to the channel for all my future content. I'm going to film my pregnancy story and recap and how God moved in that. Also, my labor and delivery, how God moved in that. Amazing. And then also, I'm going to go ahead and film, what else? Oh, expectations versus reality in motherhood. Because, okay, it's some good stuff and some bad stuff in there. And I want you guys to definitely know and not be persuaded in different ways. Okay. But anyway, so back to what I was saying before, was that sometimes we as Christians, we as believers in God, we as those who believe on Christ Jesus, get confused when the word tells us to do something and we think, and just because the word said and it's good, that it's time for us to do it now. The word of God says to be fruitful and multiply. That means that I should do it. I should have the desire to do that. But that does not mean that I'm just going to walk in that season whenever I decide to. That means that I'm going to walk in that season whenever God decides to. So it's saying that it's good to do these things, and you can expect to have these things done, and you can hope in the fact that this can happen for you. But that doesn't mean that you negate the fact that God says when it happens, or if it does or does not happen. He decides when you have a baby. He decides when you get pregnant. He decides what season you're supposed to walk in, because I couldn't even think about that. There's some other testimony in this, and I want you guys to be able to hear that. So I would definitely keep a watch out on my channel, because I definitely want to talk about God's timing with all of this. But in this video, I want to definitely just focus in on my conception story. But there's a lesson in it about waiting on God for you and your husband to have your baby. But anyway, so I got diagnosed with hypothyroidism. I ended up going on levothyroxine, the medication that was going to help my body to produce the hormone that I needed in order for my baby and myself to be okay. So in that, I was like, okay, so I had got mentally sick of waiting for my period, hoping that it didn't come, and then it showing up. It happened for 4 months at that time, and at that point in my mind, I was exhausted. I was mentally exhausted, especially when you come from a family, and not necessarily a family that harps on it, but it's just more so an understood thing, like this is what it takes, so watch out. But especially when you come from circumstance that tells you all it takes is one time for an egg and a sperm to get together, and then you're pregnant immediately. So for me, when I didn't get pregnant immediately after that time we tried in December, or whatever amount of times we tried in December, I was already defeated. I was speaking from a place of defeat, because first of all, I didn't go before the Lord to have this happen for us. And secondly, I was so focused on the fact that I wanted it that I didn't even think about the science behind it. I didn't even think about how God created it to be. And on top of that, I was persuaded by the idea that it only takes one time. So if you're coming from that experience and you're upset because it didn't happen after one time, I want you to give yourself grace in that. And I want you to give God grace in that. Like, I want you to really just think about the goodness of God and how He made things to be. And the fact that it doesn't always happen like that for everyone, and it does not have anything to do with your weight or anything like that. Sometimes it's just the fact that it just doesn't happen yet, especially on your first child, because you're not, like, your body is like, what do you want me to try to do? Like, I don't understand what you want me to try to do right now. Like, what is this? Anyway, so I got sick of waiting. So then back to when we were talking about prayer, it's kind of bouncing around at this point. We both got the same thing from the sermon about just not going before God and expecting things to happen just because they're good. If God say be fruitful and multiply, that means whenever I decide to have sex, I can be fruitful and I will multiply. And that's not always the case. So when we talked about it together, because we got the same thing, we both felt that conviction, and we knew that we needed to repent and ask the Lord when we were going to get pregnant, or if He even wanted us to try to get pregnant. And that was happening in February at that point, because it was kind of something that happened on New Year's, and then we got the same thing. So January and February, we have been praying about this. And me, as the, what do I want to say, person that I was, I did not want to hear what God had to say about it, because if I heard what God had to say about it and He said something like no, I would not be okay. I was praying about it, but my heart was not devoted to hearing the answer. So I'm pretty sure that during that time God told me not yet, but I was not listening. And when my husband came to me about it, he said that I heard not yet, clear as day. He's not going to do it, and it's not going to happen yet. And to me, in that moment, being in a place where we have been trying for 2 to 3 at that point, because it was like January, February, 2 to 3 months, and it had happened, you know, like we were heavily practicing. I was upset. I was really upset, because in that moment, that place of sadness that I was speaking from could have felt like he said no. Like it literally felt that bad. And not saying that that is a bad thing, because he has us to walk in the seasons that he has designed for us for very specific reasons. But in that moment, I knew I was going to be a mama at some point. And when he said not yet, it was really bad for me, because I had already been waiting for my career to happen in the same time. When God was saying it's going to happen, but not yet. And then when I heard this, I was like, well, when is something going to happen? And at that point, I wanted to have a baby so bad that I was very upset when I heard not yet. And then fast forward back to our original story in March, when my period came again. And because at that point we had decided, okay, we can do whatever we want in the marital bed, but it's not going to happen. So we can just do whatever. And when it happens, it happens. Mentally waiting on my period to come and it showing up was so taxing, especially when I was speaking from a place of defeat when it came to that, because I had not really given it to God at that point. I was praying about it, but I had not. When I say I was like trusting in God, but I wasn't trusting nothing. Like I was saying that, I mean, I was praying about it, but I wasn't really trying to give it to him for real. And so I was speaking from a place of defeat, because when you're not walking in the Lord in something, you're not walking in victory. God has the victory at all given points. So if you're not on his team, you're not in a place of victory. So I was speaking from a place of defeat and being defeated every month when my period was coming. I went to my husband about it in March, and I decided that it was too much for me to try to keep up with. I didn't want to keep having to check to see if I was pregnant. I don't really drink or do anything like that I couldn't do when I was pregnant, but I just didn't want to live that life. Like, am I pregnant yet? Do I need to not do this? Do I need to not do that? Can I eat sushi? Really? Can I just eat sushi? So then I was like, I was really thinking about that, and I was trying to make that happen. Or I was really thinking about that, and I went to my husband and I said, we have to put some type of parameter back in. I cannot mentally take my period coming monthly. I just can't mentally take it. So then we ended up putting our parameter back in from April until May. And then in June, I have been praying about it, earnestly praying about it, going before the Lord, being convicted by not praying about it. I really was praying about it, because at that point I wanted a baby, but we weren't even trying to have a baby. So at that point I had no other choice but to depend fully on God with that. And I finally gave it to God. So I was praying through March after my period came, April and May. And then in June, I was praying about it, and I just felt lighter. I didn't have any peace before. And then all of a sudden, I felt lighter. I had peace about it. I was like, if we get pregnant, we get pregnant. If we don't, I'm fully satisfied in you. If this is not our season, this is not our season. God, you will bring it when you bring it. And I'm okay if it's not. I don't care if I need to go to PA school and it's going to conflict. I don't care about the things on our calendar. I don't care about all of that. I want you to bring the baby when you bring the baby. I had peace, and I and my husband decided to try again. That same night, that same day, whatever, the next time we had intercourse was the day I got pregnant. And when I say that was just, it was crazy, because, and I don't know how I'm crying about this. I've never cried about this. When I say I had been taking like ovulation strips to make sure I was ovulating anyway, and I was ovulating perfectly fine, right on time, the way I was supposed to. And then I had the HCG test. Your HCG is higher when you're pregnant, and these test strips test for HCG, and if it's at a certain point, it will have a line, as if, you know, it's kind of like a pregnancy test. It has a control, and then if it's another line, you're pregnant. I had been taking these off and on since that December. If you ain't got the Flow app, get the Flow app, boo, okay? Because the Flow app will do good things for you. And then I'll tell you, in the short, I'll also include what apps I use throughout my pregnancy and such. So in June was the day, June 13th was the day that I conceived. And then I took my first HCG, which I was talking about earlier, on July 13th, which is crazy because it was the exact month away. Oh my goodness, this is just crazy. But anyway, once I had all those feelings, and then I seen that I was spotting and my period was not supposed to come, that week that I was spotting, and it was like weird spotting. Okay, look up implantation bleeding and you'll see what type of bleeding I'm talking about. So it was weird, definitely. So then I was like, okay, something is up. So then I decided to take an HCG test on the 13th, and I got a faint line. And I was just like, there's no way. There's no way. There's no way. There's no way. And I feel like I have the pictures of them, and I'll leave them up here because you guys are gonna look at that and be like, teacher, there was no faint line. When I say my husband didn't see it, he does wear glasses and have astigmatism in both eyes. But when I say I seen the line, I was like, it's there, it's there, it's there. And I took another one on the 14th, another one on the 15th. And I think another one on the 16th. And then at that point, or no, another one on the 15th. And then at that point, on that Saturday, it looks like I had cramping as well as nausea. So then I have been telling my husband about it. Like, you know, oh, I'm taking these HCG strips. But my husband is not in medicine at all. Like, he's squeamish and everything. Even though I'm telling you my birth story and you're going to hear what he did during that time. And you're going to be like, that man ain't squeamish. They got this. Anyway. So I had been, what did I do? I had been taking those. So me in medicine, I knew that meant I was pregnant. I was experiencing all the feels. It was just so much going on. It was just so much happening. And I just knew, I was pregnant. So then I was like, okay. But my husband, he was kind of like, oh, that just means like, okay, like, what does that mean? And I'm like, that means we're pregnant. And he was like, okay, like what? But it's not a pregnancy test, it's an HCG test. And I'm like, well, that's what they test for in a doctor's office when you go and get tested anyway. And he was just like, okay. So it kind of didn't hit him. And then on Monday, we had already bought these before, and then I just bought more because I used the other ones. And I bought the test that said pregnant or not pregnant. And it was just such a moment for us where we thought, like, it was such a moment. Okay, so first of all, expectations versus reality. I'm definitely gonna have a video on my channel about that. But expectations versus reality, I always thought that I would get pregnant and I would do one of those Pinterest worthy announcements to my husband where I buy him the shirt, the balloons are out, everything is happening, and he is on the bed when he gets home from work. First of all, my husband worked from home. Okay, so that expectation that I had anyway was kind of like, how you gonna expect for you to be able to do that without him knowing he worked from home? So sometimes you need to just look and evaluate your expectations and see if they're even reasonable. Because could they even happen even if it were to happen? Like, that didn't even make sense for me to think like that. And then the other expectation was that my husband was gonna do a backflip when he found out. Like, I thought we were gonna find out at different times, and he was gonna do a backflip and just shout or do something crazy, you know. And how it happened was that I was like, babe, I'm gonna take the actual test, and it's gonna be first thing in the morning. I hop out the bed, I go pee, and I pee on the stick or whatever, and it says pregnant. And I don't know, I've never really gotten emotional about this, so I don't know what these feels are, but I definitely think that it's because you're gonna get pregnant. You're gonna get pregnant, and it's gonna happen for you. And I don't know when it's gonna happen for you, but I just know it's gonna happen for you. And I know this seems kind of weird for me to be praying or for me to be saying that when I only really tried for like 6-ish months, but you're gonna get pregnant. And I guess I'm feeling like this because I really want every woman who wants to experience that to experience seeing the positive test. Like, I want you to be able to feel what it feels like to see the positive test. And I'm not trying to talk it up, because it's honestly not, it's not this joyous, super crazy, you're just crying tears of joy and like happy. It's not like that. It's not this overwhelming happiness. It's this overwhelming rush of all types of feelings, and it's like the first feeling of being a mom. Like, it really is that first feeling of being a mom. Like, it's so crazy. It's so crazy because it's nothing like I thought it was gonna be. It was all, I made some weird noise. My husband was like, I thought it was negative because of the vocal that came out of your mouth. Like, it was something along the lines of like or something, but it was like this, like from the depths of my soul, I guess, when I seen that I was pregnant. And he didn't know yet. Like, he still, after the HCG test, he didn't think, you know, like he didn't put two and two together. He's not a medicine, so he was like, I don't know what HCG is, so I don't know what it means for it to be high and all of this stuff. So in his mind, it didn't click. So I'm holding the test and I'm in the bathroom by myself because our bathroom at our old apartment had double sinks in one room with a sliding door, and then it had another door and it had the tub and the toilet. So I was in the tub and the toilet room, and I seen it and experienced that feeling, and that feeling summed up, it's just the first time you feel like a mom. Like, it's not so much joy that you're overwhelmed and you cry. It's like joy that it happened for you, happiness that it didn't take longer and it's here, you're walking in your season. Sadness because it's like, whoa, like it's just this like level of like, there's no more trying. It's like the end of a chapter. You're like, it's like this weird thing. You kind of start mourning the chapter, even though you're so happy about this new chapter. You start like a little bit mourning, like it's happened, it's over, like the wait is over. So it's kind of like this weird sadness, or like not even sadness, but just this like, oh, like, okay. And then of course the like just the angst of it. Like, I'm a mom now. I gotta take care of you. You're in there. Hey, how you doing? You know, like stuff like that. So it was just, it was so crazy. And it's not like you feel different really in your body. I feel like when I grew up, and I'm gonna do a whole video about this, so let me just save that for the video. But anyway, it just is this overwhelming feeling of emotions, and it's a lot of different emotions. So don't be upset if when you find out that you're pregnant, that you don't feel happy, like this overwhelm, like that's not the only thing you feel. Sometimes you think that you're only supposed to be happy, and that wasn't what it was for me. So then I walked out and I had the Sharpie because I was marking the dates on my test that I was taking before. And I had the Sharpie and I wrote "Hi Daddy" on the test, and my husband, I was like, okay, you can see now. And my husband read it and he just looked like, when I say, you know, remember my expectation where I was like backflip, shouting something, doing something crazy. He just looked, and it was almost like all like calculations, college funds, pregnancy things, you know, dad things just was going through his mind. He was just looking. I vaguely remember, but I'm pretty sure it was like a vague, like a, almost like a smirk. And that smirk said everything. Like, it was just like, for him, that was his, remember that noise that I made or whatever? For him, it was that. And in that moment, it was crazy because when it happened, it's one of those things like you don't think it would happen, but you know it's gonna happen. But when it happens, it's like, it happened. Like, what? Like, you're not playing anymore. Like, this is not a thought anymore. This is not an expectation. This is not a hope. This is reality. Like, when it switches from a hope to reality, it is so overwhelming. It is so overwhelming. So anyway, and one last thing that I wanted to make the connection, because at this point this video is getting very long. The testament and the reason why I didn't conceive at the time that I did was that a medication takes 60 to 90 days to get into your bloodstream, or to get into your bloodstream, your systems, and actually work, and you see the actual effects of it. I got pregnant exactly 90 days, somewhere around 90 days after I started the medication. So a testament in that, and I don't want to cry or anything like that with that, but like a testament in that is that you have got to wait on the Lord. You have got to wait on the Lord, because if I didn't wait on the Lord and I got pregnant, and I'm not saying that I could have gotten pregnant if it wasn't God's timing, but just thinking about the timing of it and resting in the fact that it has not happened yet is so important, because you, in the timing that he has, there's going to be a reason why. And he gave me my reason immediately. Or no, I didn't even realize the reason until I was about 7 or 8 months pregnant. And then I was like, wait, what? Like, wait a minute. I'm really like, because I started realizing I was getting ready to give birth, and I was like, oh, this is almost the exact year from when I like got on the medication. And then I started thinking about when I got on the medication. Then I started realizing, like, God, you sheltered my baby. You sheltered me, and you have a plan. It just shows his goodness. It shows his mercy. It shows his plan, because he didn't have it so she would have mental development issues and all of those things that could have happened if I didn't have that medication. And that's not to scare you. That's just to go and say that it's a reason why it has not happened yet. Whether you realize the reason why you're pregnant when you give birth, or long time after, it's a reason. So just have hope and expectation, but also be generous with God in this moment. Be generous with your time, with your emotion, with your feelings about everything, with everything that you are. Just be generous with God during this time, and help him to help you by leaning into him seriously. Not how I was before I stopped trying to conceive. Don't say you giving it to God and you ain't giving it to God. Give it to God and really ask him for your help, for his help, and he will help you, and he will uphold you, and he might even in that moment tell you why it has not happened yet. So I hope this video encouraged you in some type of way. Your time is coming. Your time is coming. Your time is coming. I thank you for watching this video, and I hope that you enjoyed it and that it was such an encouragement to you. Peace out.